Welcome to Live Daf, your online Daf Yomi Shir.
Shalom and welcome back to today's Daf, which is Eruvin Daf Samach Aleph. We are on Samach Amud Beis, towards the bottom. Perhaps let's just back up a couple of lines to 8 lines from the bottom. It says the Gemara, De Omar Rabbi Idi, Omar Rabbi Shimon Levi. So Rabbi Idi quoted Rabbi Shimon Levi as follows. Hoya moededuba. This fellow has an Erev somewhere, and he begins measuring his tchum of 2,000 amma, and he's walking along, measuring his steps. He encounters a city, and his 2,000 amma, and right in the middle of that city. In this case, he's granted that first half of the city, that's considered to be part of his 2,000 amma. But he cannot continue farther into the city. What if his measurement, what if his calculation, his 2,000 amma point reaches the end of the city, in which case the entire city is included in his tchum? So, in this case, we consider the entire city, which is really one residential unit, as though it's merely 4 ames. Why? Because it was enveloped, it was included into his tchum, it's completely within his tchum area. Therefore, it's considered to be part of his residency. And it's one place of residence. Therefore, we treat it merely like 4 ames, like one unit, one personal space, which is 4 ames. And that's all we deduct from the tchum for the sake of the city. It counts like 4 ames. And then, after he passes the city, he continues, he resumes his calculation. He only deducts 4 ames for the city. Then he has the remainder till he reaches 2,000 ames in total. So Rabbi Shimon Levi differentiates for us between a case where his boundary ended in the middle of the city, in which case we don't treat the city like 4 ames. We say, okay, you're 1,000 ames into the city, deduct that 1,000 from your tchum and stop right there. But if his tchum managed to somehow get all the way to the other side of the city, in which case the entire city is included in his boundary, we treat it like one singular unit, like 4 ames, and that's all he needs to deduct from his tchum for the sake of the city. And he has much more left to continue beyond the city. Rav Idi. So Rav Idi was actually the one who quoted the Rabbi Shimon Levi with this chiddush, and he exclaimed in wonder, Ein elu eladiver nevius. This seems to be words of prophecy. How do you explain this? Mali kolsa b'chatziyah. What difference does it make if his tchum terminated in the middle of the city? Mali kolsa b'seifir, or terminated at the end of the city? Is a city 4 ames? Is it considered to be like one residential unit? Then apply that concept in both cases. If the city is meant to be deducted from his tchum, then apply it in any case. What's the difference between this case and that? Taisus actually learns that he was coming to compliment him. It's different in Nevi'us. Taisus brings a Gemara in Bava Basra Daf Yud Beis that after the Churban Beis Hamikdash, there's no more Nevuah in its pure form, but in a certain aspect there is a concept of Nevuah. Even nowadays, given to Chachamim. In fact, the Gemara says Chacham Alef Minavi. So, through the channels of Torah, channels of Chachma, Hashem endows the Chachamim with a certain aspect of Nevuah. And that's what he's exclaiming in wonder. He's saying, it's so deep, it's impossible to rationalize. This must have come straight from Hashem. This is a Nevuah. So, he basically was wondering where he got it from. And this indicated that there's no source really in Halacha and Mishnayos to make this differentiation. Amar Rava, actually I have a source. Tarvayu Tanani. Both these halachas were learned in a Mishnah. This is the Mishnah which is coming up soon, Daf Samach Aleph. The Mishnah says, Anshe ir gedola, mahalchen es kol ir ketana. So you have a large city, ir gedola, and nearby you have a small sized city. So the Mishnah tells us that the members of the Ir Gedola can go ahead, walk towards the smaller city, and be mahalchin as kol ir ketana. What does that mean? They treat it like 4 amis. That's all they're going to deduct from their tchum amount, just 4 amis for the entire small city. Let's see Rashi inside. 6 lines from the bottom. Amarav, umayne v'yusei. Why does this have to be a prophecy? Tarvayu tanami b'masnisin. Both these things. Whether the case of the tchum ending in the middle of the city, in which case we deduct the city from the total amount, or in the case where the tchum ends at the end of the city, in which case we treat the city like merely 4 amis, both were contained in the following Mishnah. So the residents of the large city, who had a small city situated nearby within 2,000, they leave their city towards the small city. They can walk through the entire small city. Says Rashi. Apparently the Mishnah is coming to tell us that they treat it like 4 amis. And whatever is left of their 2,000, that is completed beyond that city. Because otherwise, if the size, the actual city, is deducted from their tchum, what does the Mishnah come to tell us? That they walk through it. Of course, certainly a person can walk until 2,000 amma from a city. What's the point of discussing this scenario? Apparently the Mishnah is coming to tell us that they will treat it merely like 4 amis. Mahalcha means they are mahalchin es kula kedal damis. They treat it like 4 amis. So that's when it pertains to the Ansh Ir Gedoyla, who are walking towards the Ir Ketana. They treat it like 4 amis, and they complete their tchum beyond the Ketana. Continues the Gemara on Samach Aleph Amar Aleph on top. Ve'ein Ansh Ir Ketana. However, this doesn't apply to the members of a small city. Ve'ein Ansh Ir Ketana mahalchin es kol Ir Gedoyla. What does that mean? Says Rashi up on top. So the members of the small city who are walking towards the large city, they can't treat the large city like 4 amis. Why? Says Rashi, because the size of that city, however large the city, the Gdoila city is, that's going to be deducted from their tchum. They can't treat it like 4 amis. They calculate 2,000, and wherever it ends, that's where it ends. They can't treat the Ir Gdoila like merely 4 amis. So why this discrepancy? How can we discriminate? These people can, these people can't. Says the Gemara on the second line, my time. What is the reason for this difference? Apparently, it's due to the halacha that we learned earlier. That when a city is included in your tchum, is totally enveloped within your 2,000, then it's part of your place of residence. Because your tchum is really an extension of your place of residence. So if there's any city included there, then you relate to that residential aspect of the city, and since the city is considered one place of residence, one unit, then it's merely like 4 amis. You don't need to account for more than 4 amis for the city. Then you complete your tchum beyond that. But if your tchum ended right in the middle of that city, in which case part of it is in your tchum, part of it is out of your tchum, you don't really relate to the residential aspect of the city because it's not been included, hasn't been enveloped in your tchum. In which case, you treat it just like an ordinary tract of land, and you calculate, you discount whatever portion of the city you've entered, that gets included and deducted from your tchum. So that must be the difference between the Ansh Ir Gedoyla, who are walking towards the Ketana. So what happens there? Where do they begin calculating the tchum? From the edge of their city. It's a huge city. But whoever lives in that city gets the city as Dal Damis. That's for certain. There's no question about that. If you live in the city, it's one place of residence. So it's your makkah. Your tchum only begins beyond the city. So they begin calculating 2,000 from their chayma. And they're walking towards the Ketana. Now since the Ketana is just very, very small city, it's going to be included in the 2,000, meaning their tchum is going to end beyond that city, and therefore they treat it like 4 amis. But in the reverse, it won't work. Because the Ansh Ir Ketana, starting from this direction, their city is small. So when they begin their tchum at the edge of their city, and they start calculating their 2,000 towards a large city, they're going to end up somewhere perhaps in the middle of that large city. So their tchum is kolsa b'chatzia ir. So they won't have this privilege of regarding the large city like 4 amis. So that must be the pshat in the Mishnah. It says, Rava, if so, we have a source to this halacha. To both aspects of Rabbi Shua ben Levi's halacha. It's not in the Nevi'us, it's a Mishnah. So let's see the Gemara here. On the second line from the top, my time, why this discrepancy between the Ir Gedola, who consider the small city like 4 amis, and the Ir Ketana, who can't do the same and apply the Daled Amma formula to the Ir Gedola. Lav Mishum, it must be the Hani Kosa Midasa Mechatziyah. Because for the sake of the Ir Ketana, their Tchum ended right in the middle of the large city. It didn't reach the end. Therefore, it hadn't been enveloped in their Tchum. It's not considered to be one unit. And they must discount whatever portion they enter of that city from their Tchum. So that's what the Mishnah says, that Anshe Ir Ketana, Ein Anshe Ir Ketana Mahalchan is Kol Ir Gedola. However, when it pertains to the Ir Gedola of Ahani, Kosa Midasim B'Sefer, their Midah, their 2,000 Amma boundary terminated where? At the end of the small city, in which case the entire city was included in their Tchum and is treated merely like 4 Amis. So we have a mocker from a Mishnah to this halach. Says the Gemara, if so, what was Rav Idi's wonderment and amazement? Nevuah? It's a Mishnah. Rav Idi anshe tani. Apparently Rav Idi had a different version of the Mishnah. He had a version which said, in both cases, we have positive results. Anshe Ir Gedola Ma'alchen es Ir Ketana, and Anshe Ir Ketana Ma'alchen es Kol Gedola. So instead of Rava's version, which stated that the Anshe Ir Gedola are Mahalchen, and Ein Anshe Ir Ketana Ma'alchen, so first it was Anshe, and then by the Ir Ketana was Ein Anshe, they can't. Rav Idi's version was, in both cases, they could. Anshe Ir Gedola Mahalchen and Anshe Ir Ketana Mahalchen. And that's why he didn't have a source to this concept. Now, but still, how's it going to work? How can you have such a girs in the Mishnah? Umukim la benoisen. He interpreted and applied the Mishnah in a case where a person placed his Eruv in that city. Meaning, we're speaking where the Anshe Ir Gedola placed their Eruv material in the Ir Ketana, or the Anshe Ir Ketana placed their Eruv material, their bread, in the Ir Gedola, in which case all agree, when you place your bread in a city, that becomes your Makom Shvisa, and that entire city is considered like your home and like 4 Amis. There's no difference if the person who placed it there belongs to a big city or to a small city. This becomes his current place of residence for Shabbos at least, and therefore it's treated like 4 Amis. So Rabbi had a different approach to the Mishnah. It's not relating to this situation where a person is living elsewhere and he's walking over here and he's calculating. That's not what it's talking about. We're speaking about a very simple case where a person placed his Eruv material in this city, and therefore the entire city is regarded like 4 Amis. But regarding calculating and counting your steps and ending up in a city, that's not what the Mishnah is speaking about. And therefore, Rav Idi responded with wonderment and amazement at Rabbi Shua ben Levi's halacha. Where did he find this distinction, right, between the case where he was moided, his 2,000 end up in the middle of the city, in which case the city is not 4 Amis, and the case where it end up at the end of the city where it is 4 Amis. Where did he find it? Because in this Mishnah we don't find it. Says the Gemara, V'loi, this halacha is not to be found in the Mishnah. Actually, if you take a close look at the last line of that Mishnah, we find as follows. V'atanan, the Mishnah says, when the Chachamim granted 2,000 for the calculator, meaning a person places an Eruv and calculates 2,000, he'll only have 2,000, even in a case where, say, his 2,000 take him right in the middle of a cave. So it's an enclosed area. He has to stop right there. He can't go even one step further into the cave. So you have a Mishnah which tells us that if a person's tchum takes him into the middle of an enclosed area, he has to stop right there. We don't consider the enclosed area like 4 Amis. In this case, where his 2,000 terminated in the middle of that area. So we do have a source for this halacha. It's a clear Mishnah. says to him, okay, that aspect we have. But the other aspect, that if the 2,000 end at the end of the area, in this case we consider the entire area like 4 amis, that we don't have a Mishnah for. So that's why Rav Idi responded with amazement. How do you know that? How do you know to differentiate between one case and the other? And that's indeed why Rabbi Shimon Levi needed to teach it us. Rabbi Shimon Levi needed to inform us the halacha of Sofer. So if the calculation takes him all the way to the end of the city, in which case it's enveloped in his tchum, he relates to the residential aspect of that city, and since it's one place of residence, it's one unit, it's 4 amis. Okay, so in summary, if a person places an Erev in a city, that's just like he would actually spend the Ben Hashmashas there. It's his Makom Shvisa, it's his Shabbos residence. The entire area is 4 amis. And 2,000 he gets beyond that huge city. What if he's calculating, he's counting along, he's walking along, and he reaches a city? So that depends. If his 2,000 takes him to the end of the city, in which case the entire city is included in the Tchum, it's regarded merely like 4 amis. If he has to stop somewhere in the middle of the city, then we don't apply this formula. Wherever you came to, that's where you stop, and not a step further. And whether or not we have a source for this halacha, that depends on the girsa. So according to Rava's girsa in the Mishnah, according to Rava's girsa, which is anshe and ein anshe, so we have a clear makar to this concept. Some people can refer to a city as 4 amis because it's been included in their tchum, and some can because it's not been included in their tchum. So we have a source of both concepts. And Rav Idi, he had a different approach to the Mishnah. He had a girsa of anshe. Both people, the residents of the large city and the small city, can walk through the entire neighboring town. According to that, apparently he wasn't speaking about this story, he was speaking about placing the Erev in that neighboring city, in which case the entire city is like 4 amis. So it's unrelated to the discussion at hand, and he had no source for this distinction of Rav Shimon Levi from the upcoming Mishnah. Continues the Gemara. So let's go back to that Mishnah there, and we had 2 versions of the Mishnah. The Gemara is going to discuss that. Amar Rav Nachman, man ditani anshi lemishtabish. Whoever approaches that Mishnah has a version which says anshi ir gedola can walk through the entire Ketana, and the anshi ir Ketana can consider the entire ir gedola like 4 amis. Whoever has that version, which was actually Rav Idi's version, lemishtabish. It's not erroneous. It can be a correct version. The halacha is true and correct. Uman detani ein anshi lemishtabish. Likewise, the other girsa, which was Rava's girsa, that the Mishnah begins by saying anshi ir gedola can regard the small city like 4 amis, but ein anshi ir ketana, they can't regard the large city like 4 amis. Lemishtabish. That girsa too is not erroneous. Man detani anshi lemishtabish. The girsa that read anshe twice, meaning both members, both cities can walk through the neighboring city and treat it like 4 amis. Lemishtabish. It's not erroneous. The mukim lebenoisen, because he applies the Mishnah to a case where the Erev was placed in that neighboring city, in which case it's 4 amis. The other version, that's also not erroneous. The mukim lebenoided, because according to this version, the reason why we differentiate between the members of the Ir Gedola, who can treat their neighboring small city like 4 amis, versus the members of the small city who cannot treat their neighboring large city like 4 amis, he establishes to be speaking about moeded, that they're counting along and they reach the neighboring city, in which case it makes a difference. Which way are you going? The members of the large city who are heading to the small city, in which case the small city is included completely in their tchum, fine, then it's 4 amis and no more. But if the members of the small city head towards the large city, in which case their 2,000 will terminate right in the middle of the large city, then they can't treat it like 4 amis. That's also a correct approach to the Mishnah. The problem is that the next line of the Mishnah discusses a case where a person places an Erev in the city. So the continuation between the opening portion of the Mishnah and then the next halacha of the Mishnah seems to be a little bit inconsistent, out of place. Because if the first part of the Mishnah is not speaking about placing an Erev in the neighboring city, Then how come the Mishnah continues on and describes such halacha of placing an Erev in the neighboring city? It seems to be a bit inconsistent according to this approach. Says who meant to learn the Mishnah as though it's missing some words, and this is how we meant to learn it. The members of a large city who are heading towards a small city, which is totally included in their tchum, they can treat the small city like 4 ames. But the members of a small city who are heading towards a large city, which is not completely included in their tchum, they can't treat it like 4 ames. When does this apply? When a person is measuring and counting his tchum out of the city. But if a person resided in a large city and decided to place his Erev in the neighboring city, in that small city, or in the reverse, he was a member of a small city and placed his Erev in the neighboring large city, in this case, since he placed the Erev in that city becomes his Makom Shrisa. It's one singular residential unit and is regarded merely like 4 ames despite its huge size. And he can walk beyond that city 2,000 amas. So again, if he places the Erev in a city, that city becomes his Makom Shrisa. There's no question about that. If he happens to be walking from one city and ends up in a different city, so if he's stuck in the middle of that city, that's where his tchum stops. If he happens to reach all the way to the end of the city, then we regard that city like 4 ames, and he can continue counting the rest of his tchum beyond that city. Omar Rabbi Yosef, Omar Rami bar Abba, Omar Funa, Irshi Shebes al Sfas HaNachal. This city, which is situated at the ridge of a deep ravine, a canyon. If they have constructed a protective barrier, a fence 4 amas high to protect them from this deep ravine, in which case it's considered a properly constructed city, a safe environment. We treat it like a bona fide city. What happens to a city? Where does the tchum begin? Not from the individual homes within the city, rather from the outskirts, from the wall of the city, from the edge of the city. So we begin measuring the tchum from the edge of the ravine, meaning from the edge of the city. But if there's no wall there to protect them, in which case it's an unsafe environment, it's not considered a properly constructed city. We treat it like merely a collection of houses. And what happens then? We begin calculating the tchum, each person from the doorstep of his home. You've explicitly said that a daka, a fence, 4 amas high is necessary in this case. Okay. Why is this different than the other dakas that we discussed earlier? We had this on Nuntes, we had this on Samach, which merely needs to be a small size indicator, a small barrier. You don't need to have this huge fence to create that separation. Why is this case different? Why in the other daki is it enough, the arba? Why over there is just a 4 tfachim in height? The daka over there is not in order to protect. It's not coming to create protection. There's nothing wrong with using that area. It's not a precarious area of use. Over here they're scared to use the area. It's a deep ravine facing them. So over here, you need proper protection. Only this properly constructed fence can accomplish that. And only in this case do we regard the city as a properly constructed city, with a din of a city. And as we discussed, this will result in approaching the concept of tchum differently than just single homes. Amar Yosef ben Aminallah, from where did I derive this concept that unless a city is properly protected with this fence, is it treated like a din of a city, in which case the tchum begins at the outskirts of that city? The Sanya we learned in the Brisa, Hitti Rebbe. Rebbe allowed the following. There was a slope, a mountain, with 2 cities. On top there was a city called Goder. Towards the bottom, a city called Chamson. Says the Brayse Hitte Rebbe, Sheyu b'nei Goder Yordan l'chamson. He allowed the residents of the upper city to descend down to the lower city on Shabbos. Ve'ei b'nei Chamson oilu l'Goder. However, the fellows on bottom, the b'nei Chamson, would not be allowed to go up to the Goder. So the city above them. My time. What must be the reason here? Lav mishum dahani avodaka. Because the members of the upper city constructed this daka, this protective barrier. In which case we treat them like a properly constructed city. V'hani lo yavodaka. However, the fellows on bottom, b'nei Chamson, neglected this daka. It didn't protect themselves from the ravine off to the side of the mountain. So what happens now? The Goder city on top, which is a proper city, they will begin calculating their tchum at the end of their city. So let's say we have Goder on top and Chamson on bottom. So the Goder on top, who properly protect themselves and regard like a proper city, their tchum begins at the edge of their city. And when they calculate the 2,000 downward, the lower city of Chamson is going to be included in the 2,000. However, in the reverse, it won't work because the fellows on bottom didn't create a dak. They're not considered like a city. So when they calculate their tchum, where does it begin from? Let's take the house only on the bottom of the lower city. So they must begin calculating their tchum from their homes themselves, from the actual home. So they're going to make their way up the mountain, and they're going to get stuck in the middle of the upper city. So they're going to come up short because they can't begin calculating from the edge of their city. It's not a proper city. Right? The house living on bottom needs to begin his 2,000 from there and work his way up. He's going to get stuck in the middle of the upper city, in which case we learned earlier that if you're 2,000 terminated in the middle of a city, that's where you have to stop. Therefore, Rebbe said the Bnei Goder, the ones living on top, since they begin calculating the tchum from the outskirts of that town, the entire lower city will be included in their tchum. But the fellows on bottom, at least the houses on the lower end of that city, won't be able to reach the top city. That's all he meant to say. And this is based on the concept of the requirement to make a daka in order for us to consider a proper city. So that's Rav Yosef's version of events, and it supports his contention of the daka concept. Kiyasir Rav Dimi came, he offered a different explanation for this halacha of Rebbe. Omar, he said like this: Tatrugi metatrigi luhu b'nei Goder b'nei Chamson. The fellows on top, the b'nei Goder, would harass, would hit. Rashi says they would hit, they would kill. On Shabbos, due to drunkenness, they would kill the b'nei Chamson, who came to visit their city up on top. So therefore, Rebbe prohibited the fellows living on the bottom city from coming up and visiting the upper city for safety purposes. Umay hitter. So why does the Brayse use the word hitter, which seems to imply that we're speaking about isser v'heter, not just safety? His skin. The Brayse merely means that he enacted, he established this custom that for protective purposes, for safety purposes, they're meant to conduct themselves in the following manner. Umayshna Shabbos. Why was this limited to Shabbos? The shchicha b'shichros, because intoxication is commonplace. So he was worried about the safety of the Bnei Chamson down on bottom, and therefore he didn't let them come up to the Goder city. Says the Gemara, what'd you accomplish? Ki az lahasam nami metatrig lahu. So now you let the fellows from the upper city come down to the bottom city. They're aggressive people. They're going to go harass them down there too. Says the Gemara, but they're out of their home territory. When a person's away from his domain, from his home territory, he doesn't have the same degree of confidence and aggressiveness, and therefore there's nothing to worry about. There's a common saying, kalba b'loi maseh, a dog who's out of his town, out of his home territory, he loses his aggressiveness. Shev shnin loy navach, for 7 years he didn't bark. So although the Bnei Goder, the upper city members, will come down to the lower city, they're not going to harass them. There's no concern. Says the Gemara, but 1 second, when they come down there, the fellows in the lower city will recall what they did to them. And they're going to take revenge. Hashtanami. So now as well, when they come down, Mitatrigi b'nei Chamson b'nei Goder, the fellows from the lower city will take revenge and harass and hurt their guests who are going to arrive on Shabbos. The fellows of the upper city are so not subject, so not subordinate to the members of the lower city. They're so overconfident and intimidating to the fellows of the lower city that even if they show up in their town, there's no concern that the members of the lower town will do anything to them. So according to Rav Dimi, it's unrelated to the concept of Daka. It's simply a safety concern here that Rebbe did not allow the members of the upper town to host the members of the lower town due to safety concerns. Rav Safra, he had a third approach to this halacha. He says that the upper city was shaped like a bow. This is what we learned earlier. So the upper town is shaped like a bow. In this case, we regard the entire bow and the imaginary bowstring running from one side to the other like the outline of the city, and everything within it is considered city. It's as though it's filled with homes. Now, they begin calculating the tchum from where? From the imaginary bowstring, which is considered to be the outline of their city. So they calculate 2,000, and they get all the way to the bottom city, which is included in that 2,000. Therefore, Rebbe says that the Bnei Gadar, the upper city, have full access to the lower city, which is within the 2,000. 2,000 from their bowstring. However, in the reverse, it won't work, because the fellows on bottom, when they begin calculating the 2,000, they're going to end up in the middle of the empty space here. Right? They won't be able to reach anything. They won't be able to reach the bow. Taisa said they can't even reach the size of the bow, perhaps. Perhaps it's more than 2,000 amma because the diagonal takes up more than a straight line. So they're out of reach. That's all he was speaking about. He was telling us that the upper city, which is a keshes, will consider the entire bow and the bowstring like an outline of the city. Their tchum begins from the bowstring outward, in which case the whole lower city is included in their tchum, but this won't work in the reverse, because the lower city begins calculating their tchum from their city, works their way up, and ends up perhaps somewhere in the middle of this empty space. They won't be able to reach the built portion. So that's Rav Safra's approach to explain this price. Rav Dimi Bachinna Amar, he had a fourth approach. Anshir Gedoyla va'anshir Ketanavoy. Very simple. We discussed this earlier. If we have a large city situated next to a small city, so the large city begins their tchum from the edge of their city, in which case chances are they can include the small city into their tchum and treat it like 4 amas. In contrast to the small city, who's trying to reach the large city, perhaps their 2,000 will end up right in the middle of that city, in which case they can't treat it like 4 amas. So that was the situation here as well. The Gadar city, meaning the upper city, was a large city, and the lower city, the Chamsa, was a small city. So when the upper city begins calculating their tchum from the edge of their town, within their 2,000 will be included the lower city. So they must treat it, they can't treat it mere like 4 amas, because it's enveloped in their tchum. However, the lower city, which is the smallest city, when they begin calculating their 2,000, what happens? They end up right in the middle of the upper city. They can't treat it like 4 amas. In accordance with the halacha we learned earlier, that only when a city is completely enveloped in your tchum is it treated like 4 amas. So that's what Rebbe in the Brisa was telling them. He was teaching them this halacha, that when a city is fully enveloped in your tchum, it's 4 amas. When it's partially in your tchum, partially out, then you can't treat it like 4 amas. So in conclusion, we have halacha of Rebbe telling the Bnei Gadar they can go down, but not the Bnei Chamsin to come up. And we have 4 approaches to explain this halacha. Rav Kahana Masni Hachi. Rav Kahana adopted this approach that it was clear who said what. Rav Safra was the one who described it as a keshes, Rav Dimi Bachina as the Ir Gedoyle or Ketana, as we just said. But there was another version of events here. Rav Tavjumi Masni Hachi had a different version where we have these 4 approaches, the same 4 approaches, but we're unsure regarding the last 2 approaches, who said what. We know it was Rav Safra and Rav Dimi Bachinana. We just don't know who says what. Chad Omar, one said Irasui Keker Savoy, that it was the keshes arrangement which resulted in this halacha. Chad Omar, and the other one said Ansher Ketana, Ansher Gedoyle Havoy. It was a large and small city situated next to each other, which resulted in this discrepancy between the ones coming down and the fellows going up, as we described. So the only difference here is that one's sure which approach to attribute to who. Okay, so in summary, we learn like this. If a person wants to treat a city like one single unit, like 4 amis, so it depends. If he actually spent his Shabbos there, this is his place, this is his neighborhood. Yep, in that case, the city is 4 amis, and he has 2,000 beyond the city. In the case where he places the Eruv in the city, likewise, the city is 4 amis, he has 2,000 amis beyond. What if he didn't do any of the above? He's counting along, and he reaches a city. So of course, if it ended at the end of the city, in which case the city is enveloped in his tchum, we treat it like 4 amas. If his midah, his 2,000 amma, terminated in the middle of the city, you have to stop right there. I cannot treat the city like 4 amas. We had a story about 2 cities situated on a slope, Gadar on top, Chamsan on bottom. Rebbe said the upper fellows can come down, but the lower level residents can't come up. We have 4 approaches. Rabbi Yosef learned it has to do with the Daka concept. And Rav Dimi said it has to do with the danger factor due to intoxication. Rav Safra said it was an ira so keshes, in which case the tchum of the upper fellows will include the lower city, but not vice versa. And the final approach of Rav Dimi Bar Chinina, that the upper city was a large sized city, in which case the lower city was included in their tchum and is treated like 4 amis. But the lower city, which was a small sized city, their tchum ended in the middle of the upper city, in which case we cannot treat the upper city merely like 4 amis. Continues the Mishnah. This is the Mishnah we discussed earlier. An she'ir kedoila ma'alchen es kol ir ketana. V'an she'ir ketana ma'alchen es kol ir gedoila. So this is the gears of anshe anshe, right? The people of the ir gedoila can treat the small city in which they place their eruv like 4 amis. This is their place of residence. This is the makom of the eruv. Likewise, the Ansher Ketana, who placed their Erev in the Ir Gedola, which is now for them their place of residence, is treated merely like 4 amis. Keitzad, how is this to be? Misha Yabir Gedola, he resided in a large city. V'nasne Seruvi Bir Ketana, and placed his Erev material in the neighboring city, the small city, or in the reverse, Bir Ketana, he resides in a small city. V'nasne Seruvi Bir Gedola, and placed his Erev next door in the large city. Malachas Kula. He can walk throughout the entire city, treated like just 4 amis, because this is his neighborhood, this is his Makom Shvisa. In addition to that, he gets 2,000 amma beyond. So this is the Shita of the Tanakam, the Chachamim. Whether you personally spend your Shabbos there, or you place your food there, this is considered to be your neighborhood, and it's 4 amis. Rabbi Kiva Omer makes a difference. Whether you're actually there, in which case it's your personal neighborhood, it's your place of residence, sure, we regard the city as 4 amis, you have 2,000 beyond. But Rekiva holds if you merely placed your bread there, sure, it becomes your Makom Shvisa, but that personal element is absent. This is not your neighborhood. We can't treat the city like your personal space, like 4 amis. You get 2,000 amma from the location, from the spot of the Erev. That's Rabbi Kiva's Chiddush. Rabbi Kiva Omer, Ein lo elu b'makom eruvai al payim amma. Omer le Rabbi Kiva. So Rabbi Kiva challenged the Chacham to prove his point. Iyata moidimli. Do you not agree with me in the case of benoisni eruvai b'mara? Let's say a person places air material in a cave. Do you not agree with me in that case, she'ein lo elu b'makom eruvai al payim amma? That he's only granted 2,000 to all directions? He doesn't get the entire cave. We don't consider the cave like 4 amis, which would grant him the cave plus 2,000. He simply gets 2,000 from the spot of his bread. Amor Lois, they told him, hey Masai, yeah, but when is that? Bizman Shema de Urin. There's nobody living there, it's not a residential place. Aval Yeshua de Urin, but if it is a residential place, Ma'alech Eskula, yeah, he can walk through the entire cave. As huge as it is, today they found these huge caves, it can be miles and miles long. It's regarded like a single residential unit. We treat it like 4 amis. And beyond that, another 2,000 amma. So Chacham disagree with Rekiva. They say if a person places his bread in a residential area, in a city, for instance, or a cave which is filled with people, it's a residential place, then it is regarded like one unit, it's 4 ames, you get 2,000 amma beyond. Nimtza kal toichem al gaba. This results in the interior, the inside of the cave, having a leniency above the top of the cave. Meaning the inside is more lenient than the outside, because the inside is treated like 4 ames, despite its large size. Whereas if a person places the air on the roof of the cave, that's not considered to be a residential place, that's not a mokum machitzas, etc. That's not considered like 4 ames. And he gets 2,000 from the spot of the Eruv. Continues the Mishnah. Now, although the Chachamim disagree with Rabbi Akiva, they hold that when a person places his Eruv in a city, for instance, this city is merely like 4 ames as far as he's concerned, but they're going to agree with him. They're going to agree, period, that if a person is merely counting along, meaning he has his Eruv somewhere out in the distance, and he's measuring his 2,000, and he ends up in the middle of a city, yeah, in that case, certainly he's stuck right there. The person who's counting along, he's measuring his tchum, that they said, as far as he's concerned, we give him the 2,000 amma. In that case, sha'afilu, or some agoris afilu, soif midasa kol b'mara, even if his territory ends right in the middle of a cave, even the Chacham would agree in this case that what you got is what you got. You can't go any further, because it's only when you were shovis in the cave, or your food was there, in which case this becomes your place of residence, your neighborhood, then it's 4 ames. But if you resided elsewhere and you happen to show up in the middle of a cave, but this is where your tchum ends, you have to stop right there, and you can't go even a step further. Continues the Gemara. So according to Rabbanan, even placing food in a city makes that place a makam of dalad ames. It's one residential area and is one unit of personal space, and you get 2,000 beyond. Now, what about if this place is uninhabited? Nobody's living there. So the Rabbanan also hold that in this case, we treat it like 4 ames. Let's say it's a uninhabited city. It's surrounded with mechitzes, but nobody's living there. So, do we consider that as one's residential unit? And in regard like 4 ames? Or do we say in this case, Rabbanan agreed to Rekiva, we treat it like it's out in the open, and all you get is your standard 2,000. We have machlokes between Rabbi Damar Shmuel and Rabbi Lezer. Rabbi Damar Shmuel, Shavas bir Chareva. If he personally spent his Ben Hashmashis, spent his Shabbos in an uninhabited city, that's different. That's your neighborhood, because you happen to be there. The Rabbanan Malachas Kula, according to Rabbanan, and Rashi says, according to Rekiva as well, you get that entire city, it's treated like your personal space, like 4 ames, but chutzul apayim amma, in addition to that, you get 2,000 beyond. That's because you personally were there. There's that personal element there. This is your place of residence. The entire city is like one unit of personal space. But Maseches Eruvin, if he places air material in a desolate, uninhabited area, even if it's a city surrounded with machitzis, although generally we say the place of your air becomes your makom shvisa, your place of residence. And if it's in a city, the city is like your neighborhood that becomes 4 ames. But since this place is uninhabited, you only have 2,000 in all directions. That's the shita of Rabbi Damar Shmuel. Rabbi Lezer, it's irrelevant whether or not it's inhabited, echad shavas, whether he personally spent a Shabbos in the city, this uninhabited city, whether he places food there. Malachas Kula, according to the Chachamim, he gets the entire area, and it's treated like 4 ames. V'chutzul apayim amma, in addition to that, 2,000 amma. It's one unit. It's an enclosed area. It's a city. It has a din of one residential unit because you placed your food there. To you, this is considered to be your neighborhood. Although there's nobody actually living there, it's irrelevant. So in summary, according to Rekiva, if a person places food in a city, we give him 2,000 amma and no more. According to Rabbanan, not only if you happen to spend Shabbos in the city, in which case it's your neighborhood, do we consider the city like 4 amas and you get an additional 2,000? Even if you place your food in the city, that's considered to be your neighborhood, and the city is merely treated like 4 amas. What if the city is uninhabited? So according to Rabbi Lezer, doesn't change matters. This is still your neighborhood. You're there. Your Makom Shvis is there. According to Rabbi Yehuda Mashmol, no. In this case, since we're lacking both personal elements, he's personally not there, it's only his food, and there's nobody actually living there. So both personal elements are absent here. We can't treat this like one neighborhood, like 4 amas. May say you have a kasha on the shita of Rabbi Lezer, who maintains that even a place which is lacking residents, uninhabited area, according to Chachamim, we're going to treat like 4 amas. We have a Mishnah, our Mishnah. Amalei Rabbi Kiva. Rabbi Kiva responded to the Chachamim, Iyatem moidimli. Do you not agree with me in the following case? Benois Maseches Eruvin b'ma'ara. If a person places Eruv in a cave, she'ein lo mimakim eruvai ela apayim amma, that we only have 2,000 amma in our direction, we don't consider the cave like 4 amas. Amr lois, they responded, certainly, in that case. Eimasai, yeah, when is that? Bizman she'ein b'diyur, when there are no residents present in that cave. In which case we can't consider it like a neighborhood. We can't consider it to be like one residential unit. So that was the response of the Chacham to Rabbi Kiva. What does this indicate? Apparently when there are no residents there, when it's uninhabited, they agree to Rabbi Kiva. That placement of food in this area does not regard it as one residential unit. This is a kasha when Rabbi Lezer tells us that even if it's uninhabited, it makes no difference. Says in my aim badiyur. What does aim badiyur mean? It's not suitable for residency. It doesn't have mechitzes. And that's why it can't be considered like 4 amas. But a place which has mechitzes, we regard it like 4 amas, whether or not it is inhabited. Toshma, we have a raya from the Brisa which says like this: Shabbos bir, if a person actually spent his Shabbos in a city, afilu hi gedola kantuchya, even if it's so large in size like the city of Antuchya, b'ma'ara, or he actually personally spent Shabbos in a cave, a huge cave, afilu hi ki ma'aras tzidkiyo melech Yehuda, even if it's large in size like the cave that Tzidkiyo prepared for himself to escape from Yerushalayim all the way to Yericho, from the Kazdim, from Nebuchadnezzar. So if a person actually spent his Shabbos in these enclosed areas, that's regarded like his personal space. Malachis Kula, he can walk through that throughout the entire thing. V'chutzula payim amma, and beyond another 2,000. That's the Brisa. Now the Brisa mentions a city and a cave. Ketani ir dumya demar. Let's assume that the nature, the character of the city is similar to the characteristics of the Ma'ar. What does that mean? Since they're listed together, let's assume they're similar nature. Ma ma'ara chareva. Just as a cave is presumed to be uninhabited, af ir chareva. Likewise, the city which is mentioned together with the Ma'ara is speaking about an uninhabited city. And the Brisa tells us, V'shavasin. When do we consider like one unit? Because he actually spent Shabbos there. Aval heiniach loy. But the Brisa is coming to tell us that it's only if he personally spends Shabbos there, but if he just places food there, since it's an uninhabited area, we can't consider like one unit. Now let's analyze. Whose shita are we following? Mani. Whose shita is this? Ilim Rabbi Kiva. Are we following Rabbi Kiva's shita? And the Brisa is stressing to us that placement of an Erev in an uninhabited area cannot result in that area being considered like 4 amas. According to Rabbi Kiva, my area, Ilim Rabbi Kiva, my area chareva. Why discuss an uninhabited area? I feel Yesheva Nami, even a fully inhabited area is still not considered like 4 amas by merely placing your food there. So apparently this Brisa not following Rabbi Kiva because there's no chiddush to discuss this case. Because Rabbi Kiva, you never consider the location of your food like 4 amas. El lav Rabbanan. Apparently this Brisa is following the Rabbanan and coming to teach us a chiddush v'tama d'shavas in. We only consider this uninhabited cave, uninhabited city like 4 amas because he actually personally spent Shabbos there. So we have that personal element there. It's your personal neighborhood, so it's 4 amas. Aval hiniach loy. But the Brisa is coming to teach us that if you merely place your food there, we don't consider like 4 amas. Why? Apparently this is different because it's uninhabited. It's unlived in. So there's a raya to the shita that differentiates between placing food in an inhabited area and an uninhabited area. Says Marlai Tema Irduma Demara. Certainly the Brisa lists a city together with the Mara, but instead of comparing the city, the nature of the city, to the nature of the Mara, do it in the reverse. Ela say like this. Ma'ara dumidir. Apparently the character and nature of the Ma'ara, of the cave, was meant to be similar to the city, which is Ma'ir Yesheva. Just as we assume that the city is a lived-in city, Af Ma'ara Yesheva. The Ma'ara as well is a lived-in cave. Rabbi Kiva. And the Bryce is following Rabbi Kiva, the Amar. That if a person places food at a certain location, he only gets 2,000 in either direction. And the Bryce is coming to tell you, yeah, that's only when you place food, but if you actually personally spend your Shabbos there, in this lived-in city, in this inhabited cave, even Rabbi Kiva would agree, that whole area is regarded like 4 amas. So initially the Gemara figured we're speaking about desolate areas, and the Bryce is following this Rabbanan and coming to tell us that we only treat this place like 4 amas because you personally were there, but placement of Erev will not result in treating like 4 amas. This was a kasha. So the shita that held otherwise, the Gemara concludes, no, the Bryce is following Rabbi Kiva. We're speaking about fully lived-in areas. And Rabbi Kiva agrees that by Shabbos, if he's actually spending his Shabbos there, we treat it like 4 amas. Says Robert, how could you say we're speaking about lived-in areas? The cave that the Bryce is mentioning is meant to be similar to Ma'ar Sitkiyo, which was not inhabited. Rashi says it was something belonged to the king, wasn't really lived in, and certainly currently today nobody's living there. So apparently it's desolate. Says the Gemara, Kim Ma'ar Sitkiyo, but like Kim Ma'ar Sitkiyo. In one way it was similar to that Mara, in one way it was dissimilar to Ma'ar Sitkiyo. In what way was it similar to that Mara? Due to its large size. But in another aspect, it's dissimilar to Mara Sitkiyo. Why? Due to its content. That Mara of Sitkiyo was uninhabited. Our cave is lived in. And the Bryce here is highlighting to us Rabbi Kiva Shita. Even if it's an area which is lived in, Rabbi Kiva holds, when we treat it like 4 amas, only strictly if he was Shabasham, if he personally was present in this cave, in which case it's his personal domain, his personal space. But merely by placing food there, we don't regard the cave like 4 amas. Continues the Gemara. Mar Yehuda ashkechinu livnei Mavrachta. Mar Yehuda encountered the residents of the Mavrachta town, the Maseches Eruvin, who were placing their Erev Tchumen material, bevei knishta de Bei Agubar, in the shul called Bei Agubar. Now, they held like the Rabbanon, so the location of the Erev, this enclosed area, this shul, is considered like 4 amas, and they get 2,000 amas beyond that point. And therefore, they weren't too particular about the exact location within that shul where they placed the Erev. It's irrelevant. The whole shul is merely regarded like 4 amas. But he held differently. He held like a Rabbi Kiva. He held that when you place your Erev, even in an enclosed area, you get 2,000 from that point. So he told them like this, Amar lahu, gavu beitvei, push it in a bit further. Kiechi delishteri lechutvei, so that you receive a greater allowance. So this was the city, and the shul was nearby. So he said, look, when you place the Erev, don't place it close to your city. Place it further into the shul, further away from your city, which will grant you more walking space. 2,000 from that point and on. Amalei Rava. So Rava responded to Mar Yehuda, Palga, disputant, you're being chaylik on the Chachamim? Be'ervin lace, the chosh lahada Rekiva. When it comes to Erevin, we went to adopt a lenient approach. Nobody's concerned about the Shida Rekiva. We follow the Chachamim. And therefore, regardless of where in the shul you place it, the shul is 4 amas, and you get 2,000 amas beyond, so it's irrelevant where in the shul they place the Erev. Hadran loch Ketzad Mavra. Okay, time for a brief chazor of today's daf. When we have a city, do we consider the city like 4 amas, which will allow you to walk throughout the city and get 2,000 amas beyond? The answer is, it depends on the situation. If he was Shabbos boy, he actually spent his Shabbos in the city, in which case it's considered like his neighborhood, then the entire city is merely regarded like 4 amis. So the answer in this case is yes. If he merely places Erev in the city, according to Akiva, the answer is no, it's not your neighborhood. According to Chacham, it depends. If it's a lived-in area, there are diurin there, then the answer is yes. If there are no diurin, it's desolate, uninhabited, and we have machlekes. According to Shmuel, in this case, we can't consider this like one neighborhood, and the answer would be no. According to Belazar, it's irrelevant of whether or not there are people there. This is your place, this is your neighborhood, you place your Erev there, this is your Makam Shvisa, we treat the entire city merely like 4 amis. If he happens to place his Erev elsewhere, and he's calculating his tchum, and he happens to encounter a city, so if the entire city is included in his tchum, it's considered to be part of his territory, then we regard the city like one residential unit. If his tchum only took him to half point of the city, in that case, he has to stop right there and can't go any further.